Chapter 4. The Invitation That Changed Everything. The invitation had arrived in a silky black envelope embossed with gold lettering. An invitation to a high-end charity gala at one of the most exclusive hotels. Sebastian Blackwood had received countless such invitations over the years, each one more elaborate than the last. In the past, he would have attended without hesitation, his presence alone enough to command attention and open wallets. But now, as he stood in his grand empty mansion, the thought of going to yet another event without Alice by his side filled him with a deep, troubling dread. For 10 long years, he had kept himself hidden from the world, drowning in his grief and isolating himself from the life he once knew. The man who had once been the center of every room, the life of every party, was now a shadow of his former self, haunted by memories and plagued by a loneliness he could not escape. But this time, the invitation had come from a close friend, someone who had been there through the darkest days after Alice's death, someone who had refused to let him sink completely into despair. The event was for a cause close to Alice's heart, a charity supporting arts education for underprivileged children. It was something she had always been passionate about, something she had worked tirelessly to support during her life. And so, despite every instinct telling him to stay home, Sebastian had found himself agreeing to attend, only to honor her memory. The night of the gala, Sebastian dressed in a tailored black tuxedo. He had not worn a tuxedo in years. The fabric felt stiff and uncomfortable against his skin. As he adjusted his cufflinks, his reflection stared back at him, a reminder of how much he had changed. His once vibrant eyes were now dull, his face engraved with lines of grief and exhaustion. The man in the mirror was a stranger, a man who had everything but felt nothing. As he arrived at the hotel, the familiar sight of luxury cars pulling up to the grand entrance did little to stir him. The lobby was an impression of luxury, with crystal chandeliers casting a soft glow over the elegantly dressed guests. Sebastian walked through the crowd, barely noticing the whispers and stolen glances that followed him. His mind was elsewhere, lost in memories of the countless galas he had attended with Alice, her laughter still echoing faintly in his ears. The ballroom was breathtaking, draped in rich fabrics and adorned with flowers that filled the air with their delicate fragrance. But even the beauty of the setting could not lift the weight that pressed down on his chest. He found an isolated corner, and with a glass of whiskey in hand, watched as the evening unfolded around him. The conversation, the clinking of glasses, the occasional burst of laughter all felt distant, as if he were watching from behind a veil. And then the lights dimmed, and the room fell into complete silence. Sebastian barely noticed, lost in his thoughts, until a single spotlight illuminated the stage at the far end of the room. The curtains drew back, and for a moment nothing happened. The audience held its breath, waiting in anticipation. When she appeared, it was as if time itself paused. Lisa Hart stepped onto the stage, her presence commanding attention even before she began to move. She was breathtaking, a vision of grace and beauty. Her body was flawlessly sculpted, every muscle enhanced from years of training and dedication. Her long, dark hair flowed down her back, glowing under the spotlight, framing a face that seemed almost too beautiful to be real. Her eyes, dark and full of fire, scanned the crowd full of confidence. The music began. It was a haunting melody that filled the room, and Lisa started to dance. Her movements were fluid, effortless, as if she were floating on air. She moved with a grace that was both powerful and delicate. Every step was evidence to her skill and passion. The room seemed to disappear, the audience fading into the background as she became the sole focus of everyone's attention. She was more than just a dancer. She was an artist. Her body was a canvas on which she painted with every turn, every leap, every precise movement. For the first time in the last 10 years, something stirred within Sebastian. He watched, mesmerized, as Lisa rotated across the stage, her arms sweeping through the air with a sensuality that was impossible to ignore. There was a raw energy in her performance, a fire that burned brightly, defying the darkness that had consumed him for so long. He found himself leaning forward, his grip on the glass tightening as he took in every detail. He saw how her muscles rippled beneath her skin. He noticed the way her eyes glowed with determination, the way she seemed to pour her entire soul into every second of her performance. Lisa's dance told a story, one of passion and longing, of dreams that refused to die. There was something deeply personal in the way she moved, as if she were dancing not just for the audience, but for herself, for a dream that she had fought to keep alive. And as Sebastian watched her, he felt something within him begin to thaw, a crack forming in the icy shell that had coated his heart for so long. The performance was over too soon, the concluding note hanging in the air as Lisa struck her final pose, her chest heaving from the exertion. The audience erupted into applause, but Sebastian remained silent, his eyes locked on her as she bowed gracefully and disappeared behind the curtain. He sat there, shaken, as the world around him came rushing back. The sounds, the lights, the people, it all seemed overwhelming, almost too much to bear. But there was something else now, a spark that had not been there before. It was small, barely more than a flicker, but it was enough to remind him that he was still alive, that there was still something in this world that could move him. For the first time in 10 years, Sebastian felt something other than pain. As the evening continued, the memory of Lisa's dance lingered in his mind, a beacon in the darkness that had consumed him for so long. He didn't understand it. He did not know why her performance had affected him so deeply. But he knew one thing for certain. He had to see her again. And so, as the gala drew to a close, Sebastian made a decision. He would seek out this woman, this Lisa Hart, and discover what it was about her that had managed to pierce through his grief. He needed to know what made him feel a glimmer of hope after so long. This dance was a clear hint to the realization that perhaps, just perhaps, there was still something in this world worth living for.